The year is 36 BC. A Han Chinese army of 40,000 soldiers crests a ridge deep in the heart of Central Asia. They stare down at their target, the fortress of Zhizhi. But what they see makes no sense. Below them stands a double defense system. The inner wall is a normal, earthen berm, typical of the region. But surrounding it is something alien. A wooden palisade built from interlocking logs, a technique no steppe warlord uses. Then the gates open. First, 100 cavalry ride out, performing the familiar, intimidating show of force of the nomads. But then, something impossible happens. Another 100 infantry emerge. They do not rush out wildly. They form up. Their shields lock together with a sound like a door slamming shut. They move as a single, terrifying unit, performing precise, disciplined military drills right outside their walls. The Han general, Chen Tang, has marched 5,000 kilometers for this moment. He is looking at the legendary Roman testudo formation, the signature of the legions, holding a defensive line impossibly far from Italy. For 17 years, Rome had a mystery. Now, one impossible fortress was about to provide the answer. This is the story of 10,000 lost Romans, one rogue Chinese general, and the only battle in history where the legions of Rome faced the armies of Han China. Our story begins 17 years earlier, in 53 BC, with one of Rome's greatest shames. The Battle of Carrhae. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome and a member of its ruling triumvirate, led 7 legions, over 40,000 elite soldiers, into the Mesopotamian desert. His goal was not defense of the Republic, but personal glory to match his rivals Pompey and Caesar. He found the Parthian general Cyrino waiting with just 10,000 cavalry. The mathematics seemed laughable. Rome outnumbered them 4-1. But mathematics does not account for tactics. The Parthians had perfected a style of war Rome had never seen. They unleashed their signature move, the Parthian shot. Wave after wave of armored horse archers swept past the Roman formations, darkening the sky with arrows. The legions, built for close combat, could not reach their tormentors. When they advanced, the Parthians simply rode away, shooting backwards with deadly accuracy over their horses' rumps. For hours, under the blistering sun, the arrows fell. Roman water ran out. Morale shattered. Then, when the legionaries were exhausted and packed tight, Cyrino unleashed his final weapon, 1,000 cataphracts. These were tanks of the ancient world, horses and riders covered head to toe in scale armor. They charged. The Roman formations dissolved. The butcher's bill was catastrophic. 20,000 Romans died in the sand. 10,000 more managed a ragged escape west, carrying the news of disaster home. But 10,000 soldiers, an entire legion's worth, were captured alive. Crassus was killed, his head used as a stage prop in a Parthian play. Rome had lost a leader and an army in an afternoon. And then, silence. What happened to those 10,000 prisoners? The Roman poet Horace, years later, mocked them in verse, Crassus's soldiers are still alive, shameful husbands to barbarian wives, serving their father-in-law kings. But where? The Parthians faced a choice. Execute 10,000 trained men, or use them. Execution was a waste. But keeping these legionaries on Rome's frontier was insane, they'd defect instantly. So, the Parthians made a cold, strategic decision. According to the historian Pliny the Elder, they marched the Romans to the very edge of their empire, the distant frontier province of Margiana, to the city of Merv. This was exile. Merv was thousands of miles from Roman territory, a crossroads on the Silk Road. Here, the captured legionaries could be useful, guarding trade routes against steppe raiders, but never be a threat to Parthia. They were isolated, stranded, and useful. For 17 years, these Roman veterans served Parthian masters. They married local women. They raised families. They adapted. But they never forgot their training. The discipline of the legions was etched into their muscles, a ghost of Rome living on in Central Asia. Meanwhile, 5,000 kilometers to the east, in the Han Empire, a different kind of story was unfolding. Chen Tang was not a typical Han general. He was not from a wealthy, aristocratic family. He was dirt poor. So poor he had survived his youth by borrowing money and begging from neighbors. Poverty, however, had sharpened his mind to a razor's edge. He possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of the chaotic western frontier, every tribe, every trade route, every weakness. He was now the deputy commander of the Protectorate of the Western Regions, the Han's far-flung military government. And news reached him of a serious problem. A rogue Xiongnu warlord named Zhizhi Chanyu, who had lost a civil war to his brother, was fleeing west. He had set up a fortified stronghold in the lands of the Kangji people, and he was causing trouble. To Chen Tang's superiors, this was a distant nuisance. To Chen Tang, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. The fortress was over 3,000 kilometers in a straight line from the Han capital. But Chen Tang had a revolutionary idea. He wouldn't wait for a fresh army from the capital. That would take a year. He would use what he had, the hardened garrison troops of the Protectorate itself. These were Han China's special forces, veterans equipped with lamellar armor, ring pommel swords, and, most importantly, the devastating repeating crossbow. His plan was to combine these Han regulars with tens of thousands of auxiliary troops from the dozens of smaller kingdoms in the region who were loyal to, or afraid of, the Han. He could raise an army on the spot. His superior, Protector General Ban Yanshou, thought the plan was brilliant, but insisted they send a message to the emperor for permission. That message would take 6 months to go to the capital and back. Chen Tang knew that in 6 months, Zhezhi would be gone, or winter would close the passes. There was only one solution, and it was treason. He forged an imperial decree. He began conscripting his army. When Gan Yanshou discovered the forgery, Chen Tang confronted him, sword in hand. "The great army is assembled and ready to march," he declared. "Do you intend to stop them with your own strength?" It was the ultimate gamble. Victory would make him a hero who expanded the empire. Failure would see him executed as a traitor who started a disastrous war. The army, 40,000 strong, began to move. And Zhezhi, in his remote fortress, had just received a desperate gift from his Parthian allies, a contingent of veteran heavy infantry who fought in a way no one in the steppes had ever seen. When the Han army arrived, the sight confirmed Chen Tang's wildest suspicions. The fortress was bizarre. The outer wall was that strange wooden stockade of interlocking logs. It was a Roman-style field fortification, a castrum. Then came the moment of truth. The gates opened. First, Xiongnu cavalry rode out to taunt them. Then, the infantry emerged. The Han records describe it with awe. They formed a fish-scale formation at the gates. This is almost certainly a description of the Roman testudo, where shields overlap like scales on a fish. They drilled with mechanical precision. For Chen Tang, this was no longer just about defeating a Xiongnu rebel. He was facing a ghost army, the legendary lost Romans of Carrhae. Tactics now shifted. Nomads were unpredictable. Romans were predictable. They would hold their ground. They would form their wall. And against the Han crossbow, that was a death sentence. Chen Tang gave the order. Han crossbowmen, positioned behind large shields, unleashed their first volley. The sound was unlike anything in the Roman arsenal, a chilling chorus of snaps and whistles. The bolts could punch through armor at 200 meters. The Roman-infused defenders and their Xiongnu cavalry immediately retreated behind their walls. The shock of the crossbow's range and power was immediate. Then the assault began. War drums thundered. Han troops advanced from all sides behind siege shields. Auxiliary troops filled the fortress's ditches with earth and debris. All the while, crossbow bolts rained down on the battlements, pinning defenders in place. The Han did something Zhizhi and his Roman advisors did not expect. They used fire. They brought bundles of wood and straw against the wooden palisade and set it ablaze. The alien Roman wall became a funeral pyre. That night, in desperation, Zhizhi ordered a cavalry charge out of the gates. It was annihilated by massed crossbow fire in the darkness. The Han had turned the night against them. By dawn, the wooden wall was ash. A relief force of 10,000 Kongju cavalry arrived, but they were merely new targets for the relentless crossbows. After several failed charges, they abandoned Zhizhi and fled. The final assault was brutal and intimate. Han soldiers swarmed over the inner earthen wall. Street fighting erupted. Zhizhi, fighting in full armor alongside his wives and concubines, was struck in the face by an arrow. He retreated to his inner palace, but Han troops followed. In the close-quarters combat, the shorter, stabbing Han swords and halberds proved lethal. Zhizhi was killed and beheaded. The battle was over. The Han tallied the bodies, 1,518 Shonu dead. Among the 145 captives were almost certainly the last surviving Roman legionaries from Carrhae. Their 17-year odyssey ended not by a Parthian, but by a Chinese general. Chen Tang's career after his incredible victory was a roller coaster. He was hailed as a hero and given a noble title, but later disgraced by political enemies for his arrogance and the forgery. He was imprisoned, then pardoned, and used again when his military genius was needed. His famous declaration echoed through history, *, let those who dare challenge the great Han be hunted down, no matter how far they flee. For Rome, the mystery of the lost legions of Carrhae was solved, though they likely never knew it. The men vanished into the records of a rival empire. The Battle of Zhizhi stands as a unique collision of worlds. It was a tactical lesson written in blood and fire. Superior firepower and logistics can dismantle even the most disciplined defense. Zhizhi and his Roman advisors made a fatal error. They abandoned the nomadic strength of mobility for a fixed defense, and against the engineered might of the Han military machine, a fortress became a tomb. It also answers a haunting what if. What if a full Roman legion met a full Han army? At Zhizhi, we saw a fragment of that encounter. The Romans brought their legendary discipline. The Han brought the future of warfare, mass-produced, long-range projectile power. And on that day, 36 BC, the future won. The lost Romans held their line. They fought with the ghost of their homeland's pride. But history had moved on, and its tide, carried on a storm of crossbow bolts, washed over them completely, leaving only a strange story of a wooden wall in the desert, and a battle where East truly met West.